Good evening, YouTube. Welcome back to my channel. I wanted to share with you what I did on my summer vacation. Last week, I went to a horror film convention called the Monster Bash in Pennsylvania, right outside of Pittsburgh. It's officially called the Monster Bash Classic Movie Convention, okay? Or a conference, they call it a conference. Anyway, same thing, right? And I've been to this before. I went in 2005 and 2006, but I haven't been back since. Now, this was my first vacation in 4 years, right? The last place that I went was the Horror Hound Convention in Indianapolis. And then, of course, the big lockdown. Everybody's life changed, my life along with it. And I've been sticking close to home, being very, very kind of reclusive ever since. So this was a big test for me to see if I could actually get out there and put myself in a big crowd of people and all this sort of thing. And I'm glad I did it. I had a good time. So the drive was insane because I live in Illinois, and it was a 7.5 hour drive. That was not fun. I did it all in one day, and I think the last two times that I went, as I recall, I actually split up the driving in 2 days. This time I thought, what the hell, I could drive all the way through. And I did, but it was not pleasant. But great weather, and it was a nice experience. I had a chance to meet up with a friend of mine whose name is Dan Day Jr. He is from Leidig, Indiana, which is right outside of South Bend. And Dan and I are Facebook friends, but the first time I met him was as a fellow blogger. When I started my movie blog back in, I think it was 2021, Dan was one of the first bloggers that I found that I started following, and he's been a big inspiration to me. So I will put a link below to his blog, which is called the Hitless Wonder Movie Blog, and I'm not sure why he calls it that. It may have something to do with his fascination with baseball. I'm really not sure. He's a big White Sox fan. But anyway, Dan is a good writer, knows a lot about films, very enthusiastic monster kid, and he's been going to the Monster Bash for many years, so he knew some of the people. So it was a lot of fun meeting him, talking to him, and hanging out with him. And other than that, I really didn't get to know anybody. I don't really approach people that easily. I'm kind of shy walking up to strange people and just talking. During the years when I was going to a lot of Star Trek conventions, I sort of got loosened up a little bit. And there's something about Trekkies, at least a lot of them, that it's easy for them to just walk up to people walking in the hallway outside of a panel show or something and just start chatting about your favorite episode or your favorite series or something like that. It's really easy. But then over the years, since I don't do that anymore, I've gotten out of the practice of being that flexible and that loose. But hopefully I'll get it back. But I did meet a couple of people, and some of the celebrities that were there that most of you might recognize. A former child actress named Beverly Washburn, who was known for being in films like Old Yeller, which people in my generation certainly remember, and did a lot of films, a lot of television. She was in a movie called Spider Baby in the early 1960s, which I decided to buy a Blu-ray copy of. This is the Arrow video version, and I already have this on a DVD, but I thought I would upgrade and get the extra features. I also decided to upgrade Tomb of Lygia, Roger Corman's classic horror film, and I decided to buy a Blu-ray of a very strange sort of a film noir type mystery called The Red House, which I've never seen. And I also bought this sort of a bootleg compilation called American Scary, a tribute to the golden age of the horror hosts, going all the way back to the 1950s, Vampira, during that era when the shock theater package of classic horror films was being sold to TV stations all over the country, like they were in my area. And so we had people like Zachary, Svengoolie, the original Svengoolie, Ghoulardi, Son of Ghoul, a lot of people I never really heard of. And we had a horror host at one of our local stations here back in the early 60s, and that's where his name was Trebor. That's Robert spelled backward. This guy's name was Robert Shive. I didn't know that until many years later, but he was an employee of the local radio, TV station, and he just did this little bit. And I remember falling in love with those movies back then. It was a big part of my life. Anyway, so Beverly Washburn is a delightful lady, super friendly, and I was so glad that I had a chance to meet her. I bought a copy of her book, which is called Real Tears. This is Beverly Washburn as a child, and this is Beverly Washburn as an adult. She's now 79 years old, beautiful, sweet, friendly, has a lot of great, very positive things to say about her career, worked with a lot of prominent people from that time, like Loretta Young. She was on one of the Loretta Young TV series. She worked with Jack Benny, Lou Costello, George Reeves, Superman. Yeah. Anyway, I just it was real delightful to meet her. And she wrote a nice autograph, which says, "For Mike, thank you for reading my book and allowing me to share my memories with you. Wishing you all of life's blessings. With love, Beverly Washburn." And I also bought, I told her that my favorite one of her movies is Pit Stop, which is not a horror film. And she went through her stack of pictures and she found this for me and signed it. That's her right in the center. And this is Sid Haig, whom a lot of you might be aware of. A very cool actor whom I wish I could have met before he passed away. Another well-known name that some of you might remember, an actress named Audrey Dalton, who is now 89 years old, absolutely beautiful, great memories, looks years younger than her age. And she's in films like The Monster That Challenged the World, Mr. Sardonicus, Separate Tables. She had a very extensive career in films and television, and was just a delight. She was also in several episodes of the TV series Thriller, which was hosted by Boris Karloff, and she actually worked with Boris Karloff in one or two of the episodes. So she has some great stories about Karloff, about his friendliness and his professionalism. Very delightful. And I didn't approach her table to get her autograph. I wish now that I had. Tom Savini was there. I know that's a familiar name to a lot of you. And I really don't know that much about Tom Savini, so I didn't approach him. Lynn Lugosi Sparks, who happens to be the granddaughter of Bela Lugosi, an actor named Daniel Roebuck, whom I didn't meet, but he gave a terrific presentation about movie collecting and being a monster kid, and that was pretty interesting. We also had people, I don't know who, Son of Ghoul was there, Stan Gordon. I don't really know a lot of these people. There was also an interesting character named David "The Rock" Nelson, who is an amateur filmmaker from Des Plaines, Illinois, which is up by Chicago. And I happen to own every one of his films, although I haven't watched them all. Some of them titles like The Demon Monster from Outer Space. Let's see. This is a cover to another one. And Rock is sort of a, well, there's just nobody else like him. I don't know how to describe him. I certainly don't know how to describe his movies. And here you go. So, but this year I missed his presentation. It was very late at night, and I was tired, so I didn't go to it. Howl of the Werewolf. Anyway, so it's kind of fun. I did buy a few books. I bought 2 books by a gentleman named Frank Dello Streeto, who happens to be a movie monster kid born in 1950, a year before me, and he is also a writer. He writes both fiction and nonfiction about horror films. And I picked up a couple of his nonfiction books. This is called A Quaint and Curious Volume of Forgotten Lore, the Mythology and the History of Classic Horror Films. Okay? And another one called Vampire Over London. This is all about the time when Bela Lugosi was in London making the film Old Mother Riley Meets the Vampire, which is also called Vampires Over London. And I didn't know that there was this much information about Bela Lugosi's life during that time, but apparently there is. So I'm looking forward to reading this. I read another book by Frank a couple of years ago, and this is a must-have for anybody who is a monster kid from the era that I grew up in. I saw what I saw when I saw it. And of course, anybody who knows about the movie Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. That's a quote from the film from Costello and eventually from Abbott as well. And this is growing up in the 1950s and 60s with television reruns and old movies. And even though Frank grew up on the East Coast, I think he grew up in New Jersey. Um, Other than that, our lives are pretty much parallel when it comes to the experience of falling in love with those movies via television mostly. So it's a terrific book, highly recommended. I also picked up I picked up this T-shirt for the Monster Bash. Just when I need more T-shirts, yes. And I picked up, this was a last minute thing I just couldn't resist. Twilight Zone. It's probably made in China. And I also picked up this tie. Some guy was selling shirts and ties with monster themes. So if you can see that, I don't know. I'll probably wear this to church on Sunday and get thrown out. The other movies that I bought, well, I didn't buy. Well, I did. I did buy a couple of things here. I'll show you. Some guy was selling bootlegs of very obscure old movies and TV shows, not all horror related. And I decided to buy these 2 seasons of 77 Sunset Strip. And he only had season 5 and season 2. Okay, so couldn't resist. Very cool TV show from the old days. And my friend Dan also gave me some gifts when we got together. He gave me this Roger Corman cult classic compilation, 4 films. Lady Frankenstein. I've never seen any of these. Lady Frankenstein, The Velvet Vampire, Time Walker, and Grotesque. And Grotesque it features Linda Blair and Tab Hunter. Okay, that will be interesting. Also, he sent me the Redemption DVD starring Peter Cushing and the Blood Beast Terror, which I didn't remember until I got home that I actually have this on the Arrow Video Blu-ray. But thanks anyway, Dan. I appreciate it. Very thoughtful of you. And finally, this is a cool item. The Curse of the Crying Woman, a Mexican horror film from Casa Negra, which I actually bought a bootleg of this several years ago and it didn't play. So I'm very happy to have this. So a very thoughtful gift from Dan. So that's pretty much what I bought for my vacation. I'm probably going to write a blog post about this and enter some of the pictures that I took. So you might want to check that out. Anyway, thanks for watching. Any Monster Bash attendees out there, let me know if you've ever been to this convention. It's a lot of fun. I think I will probably go back next year. But I will split up the driving into 2 days. Okay? Comments are welcome.